is sometimes very difficult to achieve, to sort of sublimate themselves as individuals into a group effort. And a lot of them don't like to do this. They all want to be individuals. And they want to be the star of the team. You can't have a star of a rowing outfit, because you have one guy trying to do more than the others, and if he tries to get a couple extra strokes in, for instance, it's pure chaos. Everybody has to be right together. It's an absolute need. And there's nothing quite like the feeling of being in an 8, or a 4 for that matter, that's really moving. And it gets going right, and this doesn't happen very often. You feel like you can't possibly pull hard enough on it. The oar just seems to come through easily. This is when everybody's right together, everybody's working precisely together. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's really beautiful. Fred has a wonderful time. He's been interested in athletics and physical fitness for many, many years, and well, he's about 80, and he's still in very good shape. He's a good testimony for what he's interested in. He has a wonderful time playing the piano in the ballroom. And some of the times we get in the ballroom and work on our boats, and Fred's in there playing the piano. So it gets to be quite an interesting thing to listen to. The students working on the boats is primarily a matter of necessity, in that we have a number of boats, and they have to be maintained. Our philosophy is that each boat gets a coat of varnish each year, and each oar gets a coat of varnish each year. Before you put that coat of varnish on, you sort of have to go over each boat, see if there's any cracks or holes or checks, and fill them. Sort of a matter of playing dentist. And the boys do the great majority of this because, well, frankly, we don't have anybody else to do it. The fellows, our boys, do the varnishing of the oars, the insides of the boats, and the general things that have to be done.
When we hit a log or something, if it's just a minor injury, such as a check, which a check is just what you might call a cut in the skin of the boat, we usually gouge it out with small tools, X-Acto tools, and we fill it with epoxy. Then when the epoxy dries, we sand it down to be level with the finish of the boat, and then we varnish over it.
So the exercises and things that we have the fellows do are intended to get them in better shape, in better physical condition, both from the point of view of wind and from the point of view of strength. Running is probably the best thing in the world for developing your wind and getting it so that you have wind to spare when it gets in the tough part of the race. The chinning that the fellows do is in order to help them to develop good smooth arm squeeze and to finish off the stroke without jerking and slugging at it. They do another one where one fellow will lean down on another fellow's feet, and then it's a sort of a process where the man on his back with his feet up in the air is getting leg presses, which is very good for the strength of the thigh muscle, which is part of the basic rowing stroke. A good coxswain is worth lengths in a race because, well, for one thing, the way we believe the thing works, a coxswain is the coach in the boat, and he wants to know all about how it's done, and there has to be real close communication between the coxswain and the guy that's trying to coach the crew. And we spend a lot of time on telephones talking about this and that and the other. But a coxswain, well, he has to steer the boat properly. It's got to be straight, and there are some courses you get into where there are currents and dead spots, And you have to plan it out in advance as to where the coxswain will steer. And if he does a good job, he helps things. If he doesn't do a good job, he can hurt things remarkably. He has to be able to control the guys in the crew. And I mean, make them shut up and do the things that they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. He has to watch the other crew and develop tactics as they go along. If the other crew is doing something you don't expect them to do, then you have to try and counter it somehow. It's beautiful if you can just go on out in front and stay there, but it doesn't always work that way. And the coxswain is he's the eyes and ears of the crew, and he and the stroke have to communicate very, very well. The stroke is the guy that sets the pace for the crew and determines the rhythm that the crew has. A good stroke will have a good rhythm. Sometimes he's not the strongest guy on the boat, although it's extremely nice if he needs endurance. He obviously has to have endurance. And he has to be a fighter, kind of a guy who, when you get down to the end of the race and you think, oh boy, I've had it, somewhere when you ask for a sprint, he can find it down in a shoestring someplace, where it's always there. But sometimes it takes an awfully good man to come up with it. A good stroke is a very difficult thing to find sometimes, and I think they're born. I don't think anybody makes them. They come that way. Some of them are, well, they have to have a great deal of determination, a tremendous dislike for losing, and just fire the crew up and go. Of course, as good stroke men, if things work right, needs a good 7-man behind him. A good stroke is no good if he hasn't got good men behind him, because it takes 8 good men rowing and a coxswain to make a good crew.
This is water 3. Get that blade coming down as you go toward the catch. Not going up. Okay, let's try a 3 and 10.
With rowing, it doesn't really matter how strong you are. It's your style and the rhythm that all matters, because you've got to have the timing, get the blade in, pull it through hard, and have some run. In other words, let the boat drift a little bit on the recovery. And if your timing's very good, even a boat could be stronger than you, and muscles and all, but you could still beat them if you had the style and the timing on them. On the stroke of my boat, like in a race, I've really kind of got to try to stroke harder than everybody else, so we keep a faster pace, because like if I slow down, everybody else slows down. So if I stay fast, everybody else has to stay kind of fast. And in a race, by about the half-mile mark, I'm just tired as hell, and so I want to stop. But I know there's 7 guys behind me who will kill me if I do, so I just keep on rowing.
Best exercise of all is many miles together. We try and do our rowing without spending hours and hours on the water. We try and do it with a maximum of about an hour to a quarter to an hour and a half on the water. There are some who believe in many more hours than this, but we don't feel that it's justified. So when we're out there, we try and get a lot of hard work in the time that we have. And miles, there's no substitute for miles. This is how you get people rowing together. You get 8 fellows in a boat and let them row together for a while, and eventually they'll all end up rowing pretty much alike. They have to. If they don't, it's very tough on the guy that isn't. He finds by trial and error that he has to be with the rest.
We start out, like with us, a lot of boats will take, they'll have 20 strokes or something. And also sometimes we'll have a start, then we'll take 30 very hard strokes, very quick strokes, then we'll settle our stroke to maybe a 34 or something, 34 strokes per minute. And then it all depends on where we are. Like usually we're ahead, and so they have to row our race. But if we're behind, we'll take another 10 or something. And then when we get to the half-mile mark, we take a 10 or a 20, depending on how far up we are in the race.
10s or 20s or what, sprints?
Kind of like a sprint, yeah, because like we take it up 3 strokes, and then we row it for that much, then we settle it again. And then about 3/4 mile, we'll take another 10 or something, and then we sprint. and then we just take everything we've got left and get past the finish line first, hopefully. Because really, we talked a little bit about style and all that really doesn't matter in, you know, racing. Because the best boat is the one who gets across the finish line first.
Over your head, ready, up, down your shoulders. All right. We're ready. Next. What's more, we got cartridges on this? Okay. All right, under the handle before you drop it. Ready, all, row. Let's go, let's go. Second place between 4 and Jim Stewart. Go on, go TC! TC's walking!
Getting ready for a race, I don't know how you get a crew ready for a race, really. Some guys pull the old Newt Rockney bit, give them one for the dear old Gipper and all that. I don't know. I've never been able to do that well. I figure that the crew that wants it is going to want it. You can't build it into them, and great stirring speeches aren't going to take the place of the lack of desire that's been going on through quite a period of time. If the desire is there, I think they'll do well. If the desire is not, maybe that was their product principle. I don't know. Maybe they won last year. Same thing happened to Stewart last year. They were 68. They were great. They had a lot of their people back. Something just wasn't quite right. Maybe this was our problem this year. I don't know. I've lost a lot of sleep one day because I really thought we had a tremendous crew. Boy, this year didn't show it.
Okay, let's have a 10 in here. So we move it down a little. Right together, right.